In a world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes, an elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad, our ongoing investigation into films based on pulp and comic strip heroes. I'm John Campbell. With me as always, for this investigation at least, if they don't kill each other first, it's the Tango and Cash of the IP Squad. Brendan Jones.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Yes.
Brendan, you're the Ray Tango.
Yeah. I'd say I'm the Tango.
The glasses wearing muscle man, and that irascible Cash of the show, Robin Jones.
Oh, yeah, I'm the Serpico.
That's right.
Listen, John, I know a lot of our longtime viewers. They sit and they look at us and they go, obviously, sort of a gritty '70s precinct house where the IP Squad operates out of.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. Today, not so much. We're operating out of a naval base.
That's
my
right.
friend. We're an NCIS unit.
That's right.
We are
This
indeed.
may indeed be our last detail, but by God, we're going out swinging and less curse words.
We had to go out. Yeah, we had to take to the sea for this episode because
We sure did.
we're talking
In a
about
dinghy.
pop culture's favorite sailor man, I think.
Oh yeah.
I don't really know what his competition is, but yes, it's Popeye. Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah.
I would say Sinbad, but that's going way back.
You know, but he's not really.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say Brad Davis and Carell, but maybe that's just for the Fassbender comic strip lovers out there.
Yes, though. It's,
Werner,
German crew in
comic
U-boat,
strip,
but
in Das Boat. Would be
who is that? Who is the sailor in those Tom of Finland things? Like that.
yeah. Brendan, something I told you though yesterday, off mic, of course. That's very interesting about this movie, and I think this is the first, and this might be the only time this happens in the IP Squad. The movie we are watching, the movie we're discussing this week, came out the week after last week's movie. It is the same amount of time between these episodes as came out of these films' releases, which is insane because both of these movies are nuts. Holiday Christmas movie season 1980, America was just slapped in the face twice with two totally out there comic book
Let
movies.
me ask you a question, John, and maybe Bookworm over here, Specs, Brendan can pick up on this.
Yeah.
There was a Martin Scorsese argument against comic strip movies in 1980. Is my question.
Yeah.
Is my question. I put that to you.
Do you think he called up? Do you think he called up Altman and was like, "Bob, what are you doing? What are you out of your mind? This isn't cinema."
Actually, that's a good impression. Only you did it about 3 times too slowly.
Yeah,
because
why?
And so much cocaine.
Yeah, well, especially for 1980 Scorsese, he almost would have been.
Hear each other at a very high pitch and speed. I will give background, not on that, but I will give background as per usual
On the, because I really,
the subject matter.
like Popeye's just always a thing. Here's the thing about Popeye that's, I don't know much about the character beyond, I'm familiar with the general vibe and the side character stuff, but Popeye was ancient when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like it was that's what I mean.
Brendan and I were kids,
He always,
the ancientest.
He's the ancient mariner. We're about to tell a rhyme about.
But yeah, that's the thing is, so when I'm saying that,
Explain the scene with the albatross to you, John.
yes,
No, so here's the thing: is he is perhaps history's, or definitely comic strips, most successful Steve Urkel. Because
yes, I did.
Theater, which
that's a hot take. Oh,
yeah, there you go. Well, because the comic strip Thimble Theater by E.C. Seeger started in 1919. And it was a parody of like melodrama stuff. And the reason it was called Thimble Theater was he abandoned this concept in the first year, but originally it was the actors, like he did a cast list, and each strip was a one wrap-up gag, but he would have the character name and the actor playing them. So Olive Oyl was the actress who would play all the heroines, and it'd be like dumb name and then Olive Oyl, the stand-in guy, and then other name. So Ham Gravy, by the way, was her original boyfriend, and that is the character that Bill Irwin plays in this movie.
Oh, one of the high points of this movie.
Previous boyfriend, Ham Gravy.
Ham Gravy.
So
the ubiquitous Ham Gravy.
The thing is, yes. So for like 10 years, it was one-off gags with the Oyl family, because he eventually decided it was just always going to be Olive Oyl. She wasn't playing characters. And then her brother Castor enters the scene. Ham Gravy is still in there, and Yeah. And then 10 years into the comic strip.
So, Brendan, let me stop you there. Already a successful comic strip, right?
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to see what the Oyls were going to do next, what zany thing they were going to do.
Pretty much. And also they credit it with, because eventually he started going for longer storylines that they would have to tune in. And that was rare. So that became like the model that adventure strips would follow. But he started doing these weird, wacky adventures. And at one point, the Oyls are on some island where there's like crazy gambling going on and money. And they hire a sailor to help them load all this money that Castor's won and sail, and it's Popeye.
Castor's kind of the money guy. He's the smart business guy. All right.
Well, no, he's the I got to get rich quick guy.
Key difference there.
So Popeye, grizzled sailor who talks funny. And then eventually is revealed to be very strong. But the reason I call him Steve Urkel is he is the side character that comes in, becomes such a huge hit that within like 2 or 3 years, it became Popeye in Thimble Theater. And Popeye's the main character. And the storylines get even more surreal when you start adding super strength. And Bluto wasn't in there yet. Bluto comes later.
Well, he needs a nemesis, obviously.
Yes, exactly. And Wimpy comes later also. And then
somebody's got to eat them burgers.
The Sea Hag and Jeep, the weird thing that ends up, becoming the name of a vehicle. So, in other words, it gets weirder and weirder. This movie sets up a lot of that stuff. What I love about it is like, you could have done a sequel where the Sea Hag comes in. It could get even bigger and weirder. Shame we didn't get one. Anyway.
It's interesting that, as we were saying, this comes out a week.
I'll tell you this, not to spoil the movie, but Paul Smith, who plays Bluto, he is still swimming to this day. In that yellow outfit.
Still out there, man.
Still going.
Yellow.
Because he couldn't hear Altman call cut.
And that guy's a pro, all right? He's not going to stop until he knows they've cut. No, the interesting thing
it's only grown, so he's pulling a lot of hair behind him.
The interesting thing about this coming out a week after Flash Gordon is both of these movies, while being totally different genres, are it's a similar thing as you're saying, Brandon. It is so probably to a detrimental degree true to capturing the source material, right? Like to capturing the vibe of it, and to the detriment of business, I should say, because
maybe I don't know what audiences would have expected from a Popeye film.
This one did.
I will say
okay. I will say this did better than Flash Gordon, but still was definitely thought of as what were we thinking?
It killed Altman's career.
Oh yeah, I mean look at
least 10 years. moved away to Paris, and
Yep.
he ended up doing
He was a free
really
man in
interesting
Paris.
work. It wasn't like he didn't make good films.
But they were smaller
the thing
movies.
I love
certainly.
about Robert Altman
Yeah.
is, and this is not my hot take, but I will say it's about Robert Altman because he is one of my favorite directors of all time, like top 5.
Now there's a hot take. Altman, great director. I don't know.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, is because I don't like all of his movies.
Oh
What
no.
I love about him is that he's always 100%. He always swings for the fences.
Agreed.
It's always a full Altman. And
Yep.
even when people try to hack it up and stuff, they don't do a great job on it because his stuff is so unique that you really can't. And on top of that, when he went away to Paris for 10 years, it wasn't like he was sitting around. He made Vincent and Theo. He made a
Yep.
great adaptation, in my mind, of Fool for Love.
Definitely.
He made, come back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean.
Great.
He made these terrific films. It was just on a much smaller scale. And it wasn't until he came back for The Player that he, all of a sudden, Hollywood goes, "Oh, he's really good."
Well,
We
that-
always thought so.
That movie is a masterpiece. The Player is one of my
Right.
favorite movies.
Yeah, if you're gonna do I'm Back, baby,
God
to
damn.
Hollywood,
Yeah,
Such
yeah.
an amazing.
something
No,
you do.
that is my exact. I have the exact same opinion. Altman. Yes. I probably truly like, maybe 60% of his output. Like.
Okay, but John,
Yeah.
my question to you is,
Yeah.
when you say truly like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say love
Yeah.
without reservation?
That's the
60%?
thing is like that 60% are masterpieces, and the
Are
other 40
masterpieces.
the other 40% are all very interesting. As
terrible.
they're terrible, but they're all like ooh. I feel the same way about Soderbergh.
Right.
Soderbergh is the same way to me.
Yes, that's a good.
They
that's very
just
good.
they just churn
think
stuff out.
that,
They try stuff
yeah.
with total sincerity. It doesn't always work, but they are always in on what they're doing. Yeah, exactly.
I think if Paul Thomas Anderson made more movies,
yeah,
and David Lynch to a degree, you'd see something very similar in that they're all a unique filmmaker. Not all of them work,
and they'll
but
just
they're
try
all
stuff.
100%
I like
that filmmaker.
they make so many movies that they'll experiment. Altman and Soderbergh both are just
Yeah.
would
Oh,
just
yeah,
guys
yeah,
go
yeah.
like, I don't know, let's try and do this and see what. It didn't work. Well, all right, I'll make another one.
Right.
And that's actually
as much as I love the Limey, you sit through Full Frontal and tell me that movie works.
no,
'Cause it does
exactly.
not
But that's
at
kind
all.
of what
But they
Popeye
gave
is.
him the keys to the kingdom, and he made what he wanted to make.
That's kind of what Popeye is, though. Popeye is, in a lot of ways, kind of an experimental movie, especially for Altman.
Yeah.
It's a real outlier. I was just talking. I've talked to a few people about us doing this episode this week, and I go, "Yay, we're doing Popeye." That's Robert Altman. People go, "Altman directed Popeye?"
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
yeah,
man." And
that
a lot of people are like, "No, that's why would?" Because they think Altman, prestige, art. McCabe and Mrs.
right.
Miller, not fucking
Absolutely.
Popeye. But it almost feels like that's maybe kind of why he did it, right? It's like, well, let's see if I could do that.
He subverted the kids' movie, and he
Yeah.
subverted the comic strip adaptation, as he did with any genre that he worked with.
okay.
It was
all right.
him poking holes.
Wait a minute,
But
Brendan's about to
having said that-
explode.
Having said that,
I
now I'm ready to reveal my hot take. If you're ready to hear it.
Well, I
Hold
want
on.
to get in here.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm just
All right.
sitting back and letting you guys go.
Yeah.
But here's the thing:
Yeah.
All right.
he didn't subvert. I
No.
know that Altman is prone to subverting,
Right.
Is he? No.
but in a weird way,
Yeah.
he was very excited by this because he saw the opportunity to do straight ahead Popeye, which is what he did.
Yeah.
The thing that is to his credit, and I love about the movie, there's plenty of things that don't work in it, and I will talk about pacing problems and act
Yeah.
three, but here's the thing.
Uh,
It is the source material.
Yeah.
This isn't a subversion because he's doing plot lines from the comic strip.
Right.
He is being very faithful to look, feel,
Yeah.
atmosphere. Thimble Theater and Popeye's comic strip was wacky and surreal to the nth
Right.
degree. The cartoons are actually
more
which of
surreal.
course are no, I'd say actually less surreal, but of course, I mean, just the fact that they don't get into all the weird magic stuff. It really
Right,
the
right,
cartoons
right.
became just like I've got to save olive oil from.
Well, it feels
Yeah,
it
they
feels a little
alternate
bit like they
over and over again. Yeah.
streamlined it. Yeah.
But And so I think a lot of people that were going to see the movie were expecting the cartoon brought to life instead of the comic strip brought to life.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that and then of course bringing in Harry Nilsson, which we're going to talk about.
Well,
turning it into a musical is kind of an odd idea. But like I was saying to John, I think a lot of this, maybe not Flash Gordon, but a lot of this, Popeye and so forth, was based on Annie.
Oh,
the success of Annie on
there's
Broadway.
no doubt of that.
Flash Gordon too.
Well, yeah,
I know for a fact if you've got these two movies coming out within a week of each other, the zeitgeist isn't that strong. It was definitely because Annie was such an insane success.
Well, I don't think
the
Flash
Broadway
Gordon.
musical.
I have
Right,
answers
I think
for this.
Flash Gordon was more because of Star Wars.
I don't know how much you did on the background research there, Brendan, but that was the success of Annie was this whole movie exists because Bob Evans was pissed that Paramount lost the bidding war for Annie.
Yeah.
And he was like, what do we have? What's around here that's like Annie that's already in our ownership?
Yeah.
And so,
it's catching in of nostalgia because at that point, late 70s, early 80s, these are people who grew up in the 40s and 50s, and they loved those comic strips and comic cartoons. And so they're like going, this is easy peasy. That's the reason Annie worked. Plus, had a great score and whatever.
But
but
Annie, the thing that's funny about that is Annie so much more approachable and grounded though than this.
Yeah, I mean, just because storyline wise, absolutely.
You can do an adventure. It lends itself more to a classic kind of adventure beat than Popeye does, which is really, as we keep talking about, a lot more surreal and odd.
Well,
which is probably why Altman was like going, "Oh my God, that's the perfect fit for me." He would have turned down Annie in a second. If
because that's schmaltz.
This isn't my thing.
Yeah.
But there is a surreality and kind of a hippie, LSD trip thing to it, and so you're watching all these coked up, brilliant people of the period.
Yeah.
I mean, but you don't. I don't think this, even though of course it has a lot to do with the behind the scenes stuff, is fascinating.
But
at the same time, they came to work and they deliver, and you sit there going like an entire world was created. Altman, whether it made money or not, Altman had. Well, and I can't speak for him. He had nothing to apologize for.
No.
This is Popeye. You can't ask for better casting. You can't ask for better score. And I'm sorry, but Harry Nilsson, again, drunk and drugged out of his mind. Brilliant.
The songs are
whimsical, eccentric, perfect
and
fit.
Heartbreaking. This movie is such a sweet film.
Yep.
It's like you can talk
open-hearted. No sinister.
open. Yeah, and you're just like going, oh my God, the tale of an orphan who's not an orphan really, but looking for his pa, and even shows up in a town full of oddballs, and in the town full of oddballs, he is still ostracized. I'm God damn, I love this movie.
All right, Robin, your hot take.
It's great.
This is a success.
Are you ready now for my hot take?
Hot take.
What's your hot take?
Hot take.
Well, Brendan kind of led to it, but here's the thing. If Altman had made Annie, it would have been like Thieves Like Us or Kansas City.
Yeah.
It would have been heavy on the depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love both of those movies. So
from anybody in the frame of the camera, as much as you would have heard Annie singing.
Yep.
Yes.
You would have heard the orphans muttering. You would have heard, et cetera, et cetera.
That's his thing. Ambient sound.
Having said that, only a Robert Altman, combined with a Jules Feiffer script, combined with a jealous Robert Evans, combined with a equally coked out Robin Williams, combined with a drunk Harry Nilsson, could have made a movie this close to what the comic strip and the way because the sound design of the Popeye cartoons is actually very close to what Altman was already doing.
Yes.
Popeye was muttering throughout the entire thing because they would leave the mic open and they would just say, we need to fill up like when we've got him walking from, camera left to camera right. And so the guy who did it would just ad lib everything.
Yeah.
Until they
also
got
say
to the
that
next
was
action
that
scene.
that was the style of all early sound cartoons,
Exactly.
including Disney, and it was because they're like, well, we can make their mouths kind of just go and go, and people
Right.
want to have the sound on the soundtrack, so never
Yeah.
let it end. So you watch any cartoon from that period,
No,
but
like
yes,
Seven
Popeye
Dwarfs is like
specifically.
that. Yeah.
Going, yeah.
Right.
And it would just be stop jibber jabber.
Right.
And the Popeye actor, the original stuff, and Bluto too, it is just constant like, come here,
And
you.
May Westphal, who did Olive Oil. So all of it lent itself to only one filmmaker, being Robert Altman.
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch this film that has 2 or 3 people, I think, who had never worked in an Altman movie before, and then everybody else is Altman regulars for the most part.
Yep.
And I might be underestimating a little bit, because I think he had more like circus tumblers and mimes and
he wanted people that would be cartoons.
Well, that's where you get Bill Irwin and
exactly.
stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you get Bill Irwin and
but it's not just Bill Irwin. You've got a number of people who can kind of flip
you fill the background. Like there's the waitress lady who like hops over a guy who is fallen at the exact right moment.
Yeah.
He just wanted it to be, I assume, because this is what it is.
Right.
It's a constant cartoon.
Yeah.
Everything in the background. You've got the hermit guy that pops up in the frame, and you're like, what is his deal?
Can I tell you my favorite guy is in the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie? I kept looking for him after this. Dude in suit who reads newspaper and hides.
Yep.
Yeah.
That guy is great.
Yeah, the shifty guy.
Awesome.
The shifty guy is awesome.
Shifty guy is great.
I love Hillbilly Guy who.
Hillbilly Guy's very good. They're all great.
But they just cut to him during, everything is food, so he can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is worth looking at because the design, character, costuming, and the set is unbevable, and it's still standing.
Yeah,
it's now
I really want to.
You can go as a tourist.
I really want to go there. Like reading about that. Yes, like I would love to go there.
Go to Malta.
Yep.
Find the Falcon. Tour the Popeye camp.
See where they.
All you need to do.
Yeah.
See where they shot Final Justice.
Big W.
I was gonna say, see where they shot Final Justice with Joe Don Baker.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Where he has to take the guy to Malta. Yeah.
Way to go, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh man, I haven't thought of that in a while.
Yeah. But but the thing about it is, like, everything you're saying is right. That's exactly what he's doing, and that makes so much sense on paper. Yeah. Showing this to a mainstream audience, it's fucking insane. Like, it's so crazy. I love that he did this,
but John, the thing that people talk about we say this killed his career for about 10 years.
Yeah.
What they don't get is it didn't kill it because it didn't make money.
No,
that's popular and made money worldwide.
It was savaged by critics for the most part, though.
But they wanted it to do like Star Wars business. They wanted it to do Superman business.
That's insane on their part, right? Like that's a crazy.
Yeah.
It's Popeye. I mean, that is sort of the thing where you go like, it's Popeye is not Superman, is not Star Wars. It would never, and because this is as good a Popeye movie as anyone will ever make. In fact, like I said,
there's somebody, maybe Wes Anderson could do something close to this.
Yeah, all right, you got me on that.
It would not be as kinetic as you needed it to be, and Altman knew that.
Yeah,
and because he is a guy that his training is as a painter, but he is a master filmmaker who knows things need to move within the frame. It can't just be. Which is why he does those radio mics on everybody, and then you hear conversation while he's slowly zooming in on two people that you aren't hearing.
Well, I will say that's that's one of the craziest things about watching it in today, right? Is how cartoonish it is, but also because it's 1970s, 1980 film stock
really,
and technology. It also feels gritty in a weird way. Like,
Yeah.
it's both cartoonish, but also very grounded and like in its coloring and stuff like that. So it's
Nobody looks
because
like
now
a
you would,
babe.
if you made it now, like you're saying, Wes Anderson, it would be
Yeah.
vibrantly colored. The whole movie would look like a cartoon.
Yeah, it would be too clean.
That actually would detract. I just think that Altman's instincts were right all the way down the line as far as design, because again, the comic strip and even the cartoons, even though the cartoons, like any cartoon, had to lose detail because it's too complicated to animate with a lot of detail.
Right.
But there's this rough-hewn. The thing about Seeger's art is that it was kind of rough and ugly.
Right.
I mean,
Or
and that's
not
why.
as well inked as you would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's inked fine, but his
Over-inked.
whole thing is he's not one of the smooth ones. Even like the guy who did Gasoline Alley, which I've brought up before. That's real what they call clear line cartooning, where it's like simplified, but still it all is smooth. There's a sketchy thing that Seeger had going on. So when you see that real wooden town, which looks like it has been beaten by salty sea wind forever.
It's
and
amazing.
everyone's
And you could live in it.
amazing. It's
And
amazing.
you could live in this town.
Which they did. They stayed on this in the set. That was because there weren't hotels enough for all of them. I mean, they would all smoke joints and hang out playing guitar at night in the set. But the thing is,
which sounds like a blast. You know, I mean, that does sound super fun.
Where the color is true again to the source material, and it pops because they don't shy away. There's olive oil is in bright crimson red, and it's like the blues and the reds and sweet peas. You know,
you see when Altman does the shot of Bluto is mad from Bluto's POV. Then you find a different red that olive oil
which
is.
That's one of the shots that really stood out to me, because I just think about like how much effort went into getting the red costumes, the red, because it's not a filter, it's all red stuff, and I just go for one shot.
One shot.
I know. I love that, and it's just such a quick shot, but I love it. But I just think about somebody getting the bill on that. Once again, it's always just Bob Evans going, "What? What is he doing?"
Yeah. And that is why Act 3 suffers, is because they literally shot this fairly linearly, and that meant that by the time they got to the end of the movie, they'd run out of money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's so obvious they're in a shallow pool at the end where there's no waves or anything.
Yeah.
And you've got literally poor Shelley Duvall having to do a Bela Lugosi with a rubber octopus thing of like, no, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, but it's underwater, so you can kind of fake it a little bit better.
It does suddenly become just contained, and he's doing his best as a director, moving the camera around, trying to make it look bigger. But you're like going, that is a contained pool set with that one rock thing, and that's all they have.
It is, but like you're saying, it is. It's a bunch of pros doing their best.
Working it hard.
Brendan, you could bring up problems about this movie until the cows come home. I think it is one of Altman's triumphs, and I'm going to say, and I'll say something else. Talking about that set, which we could talk about for 3 hours. It again points to Altman. Only an Altman could have done this movie, because only Altman is one of the few directors who really cares about community and showing everything, like that it's very lived in. So that even if you look at something like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, where that town is built as you're watching,
weirdly similar to this movie, which you would not immediately think, but
very similar. But even the original MASH, all of those, tents are practical. You could live in them. It's to me, and Buffalo Bill and the Indians. Yep. You look at this stuff, and that's how much care the seemingly lackadaisical anything goes Robert Altman puts into his films. The Gosford Park mansion the movie studio of the player.
Yeah.
No, it's a thing where he wants some verisimilitude. He also wants to dip you into, as you say, a community. It's not just about the central characters.
Right.
In Popeye, you know who he loves? I mean, I know he gets a sound mix of a lot of people, but boy, does he love Richard Libertini as Giesel.
Yeah.
I kept listening every time it was, wide, like just crowd noise. You can always just hear him going, "What is this? Why did he do that?
Yeah.
I hate you. I hate you to pieces." And I'm going,
I was looking at
Great.
some of the
and the dad who keeps asking for an apology.
Yeah.
And
I think we owe him an apology.
yeah. One of the things I was looking at
by the
in
way,
the
Brennan, you do owe him an apology.
I do.
and keep waiting.
Of my life, I do that a lot.
No,
I have been since 1980. You owe me an apology.
The other thing I was going to say is actually, as you bring that up, it's interesting that one of the things, reading through the production history of this and stuff, one of the complaints from the studio is why so much time spent with these side characters. Get back to Popeye and Olive Oil and Bluto. Apparently, that was the thing where it's just like, what? Why? And that's the thing. Right. Also, wrong question to Altman, who was the ensemble guy.
Dumb question.
Like you hired the guy who makes great group movies.
Yeah.
What did you expect?
Probably the best ensemble director.
The creatives bitching about this movie after it was made.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. Jules Pfeiffer is saying, "Oh, there's not much focus on Popeye's script."
That's
Jules Pfeiffer, supposedly the comic strip expert, the guy who loves Popeye, and apparently doesn't get that the community is as much a part of those comic strips as Popeye himself. Robert Evans, who obviously wanted an Annie, he hated it. Robin Williams felt he referred to Malta as Stalag Altman.
Which is, by the way, a very Robin Williams-y thing to say.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, only Robin Williams could have played this character.
Yeah.
Well,
only Robin Williams could have been the guy to mutter aside.
Olive Oil.
But
it's perfect casting.
But as you know, as I'm sure you guys know, not where they started at all with these casting choices. No. It was Dustin Hoffman and Lily Tomlin. That was who that was who they wrote it for. I mean, that was for a while. That was the thing. Then it was there was some talk about Gilda Radner as Olive Oil. Was also pitched around there, and was according to the trivia I read, was talked out of it by her management because they knew Altman and this production could be bad for her mental health.
Yeah.
Right, and also I think they knew that specifically the way he makes these movies, God knows when it was going to finish shooting.
Yeah.
And
that was sort of that's it exactly. It's sort of just like this is going to wreck you to do this.
So it makes sense, but
it's also just
I mentioned this before we started recording. I've been reading these Richard E. Grant memoirs, and he talks about working with Altman and The Player, Pret-a-Porter, and Gosford Park, two of which you could claim are absolute banger classics, 100%.
Oh yeah,
and one is
watch it. It's
and one is Pret-a-Porter.
He was trying, man. He was trying something.
I know,
as always.
But the Grant talks about the familial conviviality that Altman encourages in all of his shoots.
Yeah.
In that he invites people to see the dailies at the end, in which he prepares these lavish meals while they're watching, and he really encourages people to experiment, to try stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't believe, again, only a Robert Altman could have made this movie.
Yep.
As great as it is. And I'll tell you something. Brendan probably can tell you the same thing. Brendan, would it be fair to say that when we first saw this, when I was like 13 and you were like 10 or something, that you caught all the jokes in this movie? Or is it more fair to say every time you see it, you catch something new in the film?
Again, that is the Altman thing. I caught the big jokes, and every now and then and I guess if you wanted to say something like that it was subversive, it's only subversive in the fact that there are things there that slip by you, and then later on you're like, oh, that was actually great. There's a lot of what Robin Williams is muttering. Yeah. Some of it is probably scripted, and a lot of it's probably Robin being an improvisational genius.
Yeah.
And you're just going, what a great toss away. Like, what a great toss away that no one caught.
And as I'm sure you guys know, almost all of it ADR'd because what was recorded on set was you couldn't understand what he was saying, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, because of the pipe, too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is
and so even with
too committed to
people
radio
ADR'd as well. I think ADR was going to be a default for everybody.
Yeah,
but yes.
One of my favorite jokes that I just caught on the screen.
Which was what?
The mayor and his wife walking up to the big battle.
Yeah.
And the mayor, you hear the mayor, it's just the two of them walking up the stairs, and you hear the mayor go, honey, we agreed that this time I would be tall.
Yes. That was on the way to the engagement party. Yes.
On the engagement party.
It's great.
My God. We agreed this time I would be tall.
This whole time, I will say, as far as this podcast, where Robin and I are of the generation where we saw it when it came out.
Yeah.
We are original fans. And for all the... Here's the thing. When I can pick something apart, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. Popeye, I always enjoy.
Okay.
And for years was in search of the soundtrack on CD because it had gone out of print, and obviously now I have the whole thing and love it. And I can't say enough.
With the demos.
Yes. We will talk perhaps more about the songs, but I want to give John some breathing room because I can tell John, I can read his body language, and also we had talked, I think, a little bit about it the other night, and I don't think you enjoy it as much as we do, and I want you to state your feelings.
Here's my thing. I think all the pieces of this are great. I don't think it really works as a feature film narrative. That's
a hot take.
That's my hot take. Is I do really like the movie, but also it never gets up to running speed. Now, some of that is because it is literally adapting plots from comic strips and sort of almost is anecdotal in its way. Yeah, but I think that's sort of the thing. And when you talk about the third act, it's less that they ran out of money and more that it's just it's just another Popeye thing. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for the movie, maybe more so than love for it. Maybe more respect than love is maybe more my attitude.
I will.
I think,
John, to your point.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not a movie I come back to a lot.
Right.
If I'm going to watch a Robert Altman movie again, it probably won't be Popeye. Although this time I really was just God, I need to see this because I was just really enjoying the shifty guy with the newspaper and
that's what I'm saying is that's how I enjoy the movie is that's great. That's great. Yeah. All the songs do a ton for it.
Snap to Dennis France being in it, being one of the bullies.
That I had totally forgotten, and I was like, "Whoa, Sipowicz is in this."
But,
who's been the same age forever, by the way. Dennis France has never not looked like that. It's crazy.
He actually looks like young guy here, younger.
But I mean, this is about the time he's about to be on Hill Street Blues, and he was always just that guy. All the De Palma movies too.
John, not to correct you, but I think he had a couple of more De Palmas before he got.
I was just about to say, all the De Palmas and but
two more De Palmas, and then Hill Street Blues was the France way. But
it's the France way.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I think is, I say Altman's one of my top 5 greatest filmmakers of all time. I wouldn't put this in the top 5 of Altman.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think anyone does.
I wouldn't do that either.
No. But I think I was just blown away by watching it today. It's just This movie's so great, and I you
It's
know, it to me, it's like I'm trying to think of another Altman that I think is really good that I don't watch that much, just because probably maybe a wedding
oh
or
yeah.
you know oh damn it, Prairie Home Companion. I like
Yeah.
your Prairie Home Companion a lot, but I'm not gonna
That's
watch it
that's a
Because it's
really
problematic.
much.
well, just because of Garrison Keeler. But
Yep.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
but I mean, but
Okay,
similarly,
that guy's
that's similarly actually, I think Prairie Home Companion is also a good example of a movie where I like the vibes of it, right, more than it's like I'm really
Yeah,
invested,
yeah,
but it's just
yeah.
like this is nice, this is well done, I like these characters.
It's a good hang.
It's a good hang. And actually, weirdly, Popeye's kind of a good hang
It's a
in
good
that way,
hang.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
where you
very
just
good
go
hang.
like, that's what I'm saying. It's like individual piece. That's why I don't have a negative opinion of this at all because,
Right.
and it's not a slog to get through, but about halfway through the movie, I am going like, there's no like plot here per se. I mean, there is the loosest sort of thing that, you
The
know.
dad and the Commodore
It's all
and
about
the
the
treasure and
child and
the kid and
Yeah.
are they going to get together and
it's all about family and belonging.
But I think because it's such a
and
cartoon,
maybe
because it's
really,
such a
Brendan,
cartoon,
the Popeye is the friends we made along the way.
because everything is such a heightened cartoon, though, it also I have trouble sort of like investing in any of that like the stuff with his father. You go like,
I keep forgetting that John has no heart.
Well-
that's the thing that
Yeah, it feels.
I
it feels
haven't
like you
pointed
just said-
out enough to our
It
listeners.
feels like you just said "fuck Sweet Pea." What you said.
that's exactly
Yeah,
what I
The
said.
words in your mouth. It
Yeah.
feels like you're kicking that baby.
Yeah.
Are you kicking that baby?
I'm
right
kicking that baby right
That's
currently
all
as
you
we're.
now?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Is fuck Sweet Pea.
We got to
They're
get this.
actually
I said if this
one
movie
of
be
the
great if we got rid of
best
this baby.
baby actors ever.
Oh, the baby
Yeah.
is great. Like I
baby's
said,
great.
there's no individual thing I have a problem with. It's just I don't know that it coheres
Right,
totally.
You just don't love.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
But I will say,
I love a
if
lot
you're
of- I
getting
love it.
Moment one that you're in a cartoon when there's an actual black and white cartoon,
Yeah.
and then it goes to
That's great.
Sweet Haven, and there's dudes tumbling down the street.
Yeah.
The thing that I love is that because we
Your
brought this up with
cartoon
Flash
barometer.
Gordon, it seems to have been the default if you were doing an adaptation of like the classic, character of a whatever.
Yeah.
The default seems to be make sure the audience knows
Yeah.
this isn't the original thing,
Yeah.
but an adaptation because Flash Gordon starts with the
Superman. Yeah.
and Superman start with. They're like, don't worry, guys. We know that you're familiar with it from a different
so
place.
strange talking once again, another thing that's weird watching any of those in today's world where cartoon comic book adaptations are used ubiquitous. So the idea that you would have to like sell an audience guys, come along with us. This is based on a comic book. Now we live in a world where most movies I see are based on comic books. So it's like it's really bizarre. Everybody
We
just
live
knows
in
that
a
language.
heaven, a paradise.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We do talk about where I constantly stop and look around. The amount of times you and I, Brendan, have conversations going, "Can you believe we're
believe we live
seeing
in the
this
world?"
on screen?" Yeah,
Yeah.
this is insane.
I keep trying to tell the tall Jones, my kid, that you don't understand.
Yeah.
Growing up when it was just Super Friends and
Yeah.
just Shazam and just ISIS,
I
the fact that anybody takes any of this stuff seriously enough that you could watch a full movie
Yeah.
in
yeah.
a movie theater that you're spending money on tickets for, and at the end of it go, that was great.
Yeah.
That's
Is
I've said this a few times
it feels
on.
like a miracle of the 21st century.
I've said this a few
Yes.
times on. I'm sure you've heard me say this, Brendan, but it's like I feel really glad that I was born when I did. So I caught the tail end of there being some, but still not the norm. So I can have an appreciation. I can feel a little bit of that. That it's not, it's
little
not.
bit.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, it's like there was a dearth. I had ones, but they were mostly bad. Like
we had a syndicated Superboy show that was crap.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, I grew up in the generation not where it didn't exist, but where it did exist and it wasn't great. and you were just like, well, it's a guy and he's wearing a cape though, so I guess I'm in. Yeah. I sunk my teeth into Mantis. Remember Mantis on Fox? Because I was just like, it's pretty close to a superhero show, so this is. I'm here for it.
Right.
But that's kind of why I'm saying, like, yeah, Popeye did do well, but looking at the critics really did savage him for this. There were a few outliers.
They did. I mean, because they wanted something that was more in line with the Altman they thought they knew, which is he takes something that you feel like you know pretty well, and he puts this sort of 70s, cool into it, and 70s irony and 70s, kind of postmodern analysis of why it's kind of dumb, and here's the way it would work.
Yeah. No, that's and that. Well, but I will say,
unembarrassedly a cartoon movie.
I will say though, and this because these guys were a huge part of my film fandom. Siskel and Ebert were two of the lone champions of this in the critics' world. They loved this movie. I mean, Ebert gave it 3.5 stars. Like he loved it.
Yeah, growing up at that time, I think Brendan will remember this. We remember when Siskel and Ebert were on PBS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was the only mass gateway into serious film criticism and analysis, but in a way that even a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old could understand.
I mean, that...
Because you weren't reading like an entire... article done for the New York Times or the New Yorker, or the Chicago Tribune. You were watching it in like really tiny but in depth and smart analysis.
I mean, that's why I've said that many times before. Like, they are a huge part of why I became a movie nerd, was seeing them on TV. And just and devour. Yeah, like you're talking about, as a kid, it was approachable. It was fun. They were funny. Like their interaction, it was an entertaining show. Yeah. By the way, also, Robin, you're always recommending books. If you have not read Opposable Thumbs, the Siskel and Ebert
it's on my list.
book,
it's on my list.
It is so good. It is so very good.
And not to bring up other movie podcasts, but a very good year. The podcast where they bring on film critics and authors and journalists to talk about a year in film history.
Oh, cool!
What they think is worthy, just dynamite, and now it is the way I find out about books like Opposable Thumbs.
Opposable Thumbs is
and I found out about a book about Elaine May that's coming out this summer. That if it's anywhere near what Mark Harris did with Mike Nichols. Good God. Run, don't walk. Because
that Mike Nichols book,
book on Elaine May for decades. And now, finally, before she's about to pass
Robin,
away.
you just asked me to run. I guess I'll miss that book.
Yeah.
Oh.
You have that Samuel L. Jackson
run
thing?
For anybody.
That's one of my favorite things in that MCU book that we both read. Brendan was like, his note to anything was just, look, as long as I don't have to run. That's my only note for any of these scripts you give me at Marvel. Just don't make me run.
Age.
Just don't make me run.
Don't make me run.
And so, it was just like...
I mean, and truly, if Nick Fury is a spy master, he doesn't need to run. He's just going to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm still mad that they didn't give him his flying car. I mean...
That they gave,
had it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but,
Well, remember, the flight thing doesn't activate in Winter Soldier. He tries to fly it, but it's broken. Yeah, he tries to activate flight mode on his SUV, and it's disabled when they try to assassinate him in the car. Yeah.
I missed it.
All right.
Forgot that.
All right. People tuned in for Popeye.
Thanks,
tuned in. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's great. I have no life or friends or anything, but I do know these movies scene by scene. So that's good.
No.
Somebody's got to study this shit.
Coming back to Popeye.
Popeye.
Yes.
I will say that it rewards every time you watch it.
Yep.
Like you're talking about, because it's dense with stuff, like a lot of Altman stuff. It is background things. Yes, that is the biggest thing I think that does stand out in this, is just how alive this movie is. It is it's not just the detail on the town, but it does feel like every single person in the town is a character with a story. You could follow any one of these people, and that really was Altman's gift, as we talked about. Altman, the like you said, even the ones that don't work, there's always such a beating heart of like life in them that's amazing, and you do see when other people try to do it and it doesn't work, you go like, oh shit, he did have a special thing.
The thing I find to go back to Prairie Home Companion, the thing I find fascinating about
that's what people were hoping to hear a lot about too.
Right, everybody tunes in to hear about Prairie Home Companion, but is that he made it? That was the last film he made before he died. And
with Paul Thomas Anderson.
They made sure that they had another director on set if he couldn't finish the movie. That was the only way they could get it insured.
And it was PTA.
And so the director was Maya Rudolph's husband, Paul Thomas Anderson. And
by the way, has he directed stuff? Did he direct anything else? He could be pretty good.
Not really.
Yeah, I think
there was a little movie with Philip Baker Hall, but nobody.
Anyway. Hard Eight. All right. It's such a good movie.
But anyway, I just keep thinking about what the PTA difference would have been, or would he have, like he's demonstrated before with Scorsese moves, would he have used his Altman moves?
Well, I think we could look at Magnolia a little bit as an Altman move of his.
Which is still my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Ooh, that's an interesting. I love that movie.
Hot take.
That is very much a hot take. I also.
Best thing he ever did.
I don't know that I'm willing to go there with it, but I do love that movie.
Anyway, Popeye.
Let's talk about Harry Nilsson.
Could only have been made
because I do think one of the things that does, when I'm talking about that for me, the thing that, and once again, I still think this is great, and I still would recommend anybody watching this. But I think one of the things that does hold the movie together, at least in its tone, and certainly where a lot of the heart comes from, is the Harry Nilsson songs, because I do think they. And that was another thing where
speaking about Paul Thomas Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Because he uses.
Yep. Yeah. But he uses it in Punch Drunk Love, which is so weird, because I was telling you, Brendan, I hadn't seen this movie since I was a kid. So when she started singing this, I went, "Oh my God, that's right!" Because Punch Drunk Love might be my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I love that movie, and
it's really good.
That song so now belongs to that movie in my mind that I'm like, right, but it is from this, but it beautifully fits that movie too. They do belie.
The take I have about Nilsson is I wish someone would try to adapt this movie into a Broadway show.
Yeah, I'm shocked they haven't actually.
I wish somebody would adapt The Point into children's theater, because
some of the point is, and for those at home that don't know it, Harry Nilsson did a concept album essentially, which was a little fairy tale-ish thing for kids, and it is great. I will say there's just not enough there to turn it into a show.
Well, you'd have
children's theater, you get away with it.
It'd be like a 45-minute show. I mean,
but it's brilliant, because the thing about Harry Nilsson is not just the guy wrote beautiful melodies. He was one of the thing that I have always been drawn to is witty lyricists. And so, I mean, I'm going to go, Elvis Costello, Paul Simon, people that are not just, good wordsmiths, but witty. And holy hell, Harry Nilsson had this sly, subversive wit from the drop. He's a god to me. And it's a shame that he destroyed himself. Great documentary about him, by the way.
I was just going to recommend that documentary. It's amazing.
Old Man Jones has the disc right over here. That's how much I love it.
It's a great documentary.
But he was the perfect choice again, because
who was it?
isn't mocking the material. He elevates it with all of his song choices.
Well, because
what he's choosing, it all
something
works
else
so
I think about Nilsson as being he very heartbreaking in a lot of his stuff, right?
Yes.
And so he
Oh, God,
adds this layer of sadness to this movie that I think it is Pfeiffer. Well, I was reading somebody was hated that and fought vehemently to get Nilsson out of there because they go, he's ruining the tone of this movie. He's destroying it. Exactly the wrong take. And I couldn't disagree more because I think he's actually grounding, though, much like I was talking about with sort of the grit of the coloring and the film of it. Same thing with the songs. It's like it is a cartoon, but you're now giving these people kind of a wistfulness. It's like
here's another hot take.
Performances, and it's there in even in his script. It's just that yes, the music takes it right to the heart, and it's important. Plus, weirdly, the story, which I do understand, it's very episodic, like the comic strip, like the cartoon. But there is this arc. The whole thing is this is an origin tale of Popeye. Because the entire time, any fan is sitting there going, well, he's just going to eat spinach and become super strong. And this is a guy who, I'm not going to say is broken, but he's this sad orphan all alone. He finds a new family, a woman that he loves, a child that's been given to him, and he finds his own father. And by the end, he's forced to eat the spinach, which is apparently a family, secret.
I mean, that's such classic.
With Popeye the Sailor Man song, and you think that's pandering. No, that's not fan service. He's now the guy you always thought of.
Right. And so Nilsson's the one you need because he gives it the musical beats in a classical musical fashion. He has everybody express what they want.
Yep.
What
There's
they
the
need.
one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And
he writes like a Broadway writer does.
Well, like a Broadway writer. And so my feeling, my hot take is the only composers who would have come close to this would have been either Paul Williams or Randy Newman, because of the same
Randy
generation.
Newman,
and they would have gotten the melancholy of it, but at the same time they would have gotten the classical musical structure of it as well.
I mean, once again, 90s kid over here, as always. It's the same thing he does for Toy Story. Is what Nilsson does in this. He brings the heartbreak and the tone to that.
Or the Muppet movie.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
These are guys.
It allows kids' movies to feel a little bit, deeper.
Yep.
Have this kind of well of longing.
I mean, I remember that as a kid. Like, Toy Story is one of the first movies that really, like, this is making me feel a certain way that other movies have. Like, I want to cry. I don't know what this is. This is supposed to be a funny animated movie, but
what is this feeling in my chest?
Yeah, I mean, it was
John.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing. That movie, I think affected a lot lot of kids in my generation.
When he sings about and I will go sailing no more, or whatever.
That moment when he suddenly goes, no,
the whole thing.
No, it can't be true. And he's climbing the thing, and just like, it's great, and that's totally what Nilsson is doing.
Because that hurts too much.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I don't even bring up the Sarah McLachlan.
Then the second movie, Jesus Christ,
she's rolling up her sleeves and she's going, "I'll show you."
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Well, Newman still wrote it, but
she channels. Yeah, but she channels in her singing all of those poor animal.
Oh my God! Yeah, it is
into that
brutal.
One song.
But
for just 50 cents a day, you can. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway,
but yeah, like we're saying, that further makes this movie much like Flash Gordon.
Casper mattresses.
That's the further thing that adds. This movie is weird, much in the same way like Flash Gordon. It is weird, but like in a good way, because like you're talking about, no other filmmaker could have done this. Yeah, other filmmakers could have made a live action cartoon, but it would have been far more disposable. In fact, one of the seasons we're actually talking about doing later on in IP Squad is live action cartoon adaptations, specifically. Yeah.
Well, yeah, what's interesting is one of the editors of this film. I didn't catch this until today. I was just watching the end credits. Like, how long are they gonna have Bluto swim? That's all I was thinking about.
Well, he said he's still out there, man.
Was this a loop or is he actually swimming? So,
Paul
I
Smith
thought that
trained
the
for
tail
months for
credits
this.
Was, one of the editors was Raja Gosnell, who ended up directing the 2 Scooby-Doo movies.
There you
And
go.
I kept thinking, he was an editor for Altman for several movies. He was an editor for Altman's protege, Alan Rudolph, for 2 or 3 movies. And then he becomes this goofball
Yeah.
director, starting with Home Alone 3.
The best of that franchise, as we know.
So did you get tired of doing good movies? Is that what happened, Raja?
Oh man! Yes. Sorry. Let me just.
If you'd wanted to direct it.
Let me just. You've started this. So let me briefly go on this. His directing credits are as follows, because this is pretty insane. Home Alone 3, yes, is his debut. Yeah. I think he had edited. He had edited the other Home Alone, so that was he got promoted up because he did all of Columbus. He also did Mrs. Doubtfire. Then he does Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore, which actually, spoiler, I think is the best of the movies he's directed, because then he follows that up with
no argument. That's not a hot take, but
that movie's like fine, because then he does Big Mama's House, both Scooby.
I love Big Mama's House. Are you kidding me?
No.
Both Scooby-Doo movies.
She's so big.
The Nickelodeon produced remake of Yours, Mine, and Ours with Dennis Quaid.
Goodness.
Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
No.
Both Smurfs movies. Both live-action Smurfs movies.
But John, he only executive produced the third one.
I don't like anything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he didn't fall in love with the third one. That script, the script wasn't there, man.
It wasn't at a Gosnell.
Yeah.
Gosnell level.
At one time, yes, he was one of the editors on this and Quintet, one of the weirdest. Talk about an Altman movie that doesn't work as much as I would like it to. Yeah, boy, I wish it was. Yeah. Anyway, but Brendan, you'll be happy to know, if you're a fan of our podcast, Meet the Monsters, he did edit Teen Wolf 2, which we covered over there. So,
wow. John, is your hot take that Raja only learned once he worked on Teen Wolf 2?
Yeah,
really?
I think that's really where he came into his own. Yeah, that's really where. That's where you saw the Gosnell staple on the stamp. We're
gonna call it the Gosnell touch.
The Gosnell. That's another podcast I'm working on, actually.
Oh my God.
I would be remiss if we did not.
Jason Bateman only works with Gosnell. He was like going.
Yeah,
he's my guy.
Gosnell actually. I see here he edited all of Ozark. Really good stuff. No. I got to talk about. We've mentioned all the people in this town, but let's talk this supporting cast. How great is Paul Dooley as Wimpy? Talk about perfect casting. Perfect casting.
Someone who has met Paul Dooley.
Oh, man!
I want to bring this up.
Way to brag.
He did force
dropping some names.
You back me against the wall. I'm gonna drop the bomb. No, I will say that Paul Dooley is a secret weapon in almost everything he has ever done.
Agreed.
Yes.
He's never not great.
A Breaking Away or a 16 Candles.
Refunds.
And you're not coming away going, who the fuck is that guy playing the dad? Because he is great.
Yep.
Then you need to have your eyes and ears examined.
I constantly quote the refunds from Breaking Away.
The greatness of Paul Dooley cannot be underestimated.
Nope.
I listened to
16
his
Candles
WTF interview a million years ago, and Popeye did come up, and I
like
the way he was like, I like the way Paul Dooley goes. He goes, "Oh, I had a great time." I mean, he goes, everyone already knows all the legends and stuff like that of how it was made. But the thing is, what I like about him and a lot of, just working character actors is he was saying, like, you're always happy for the job, and he just straight ahead, he goes, to tell you the truth, I didn't know the character. He goes, I didn't really grow up with the, maybe I saw a cartoon. So he's like, Bob had to tell me what Wimpy was, what it was all about.
Well,
and,
he gets it based on this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then he's just perfect.
Well, because once again,
I didn't remember that part of the interview, but Jesus God, he was channeling Wimpy. It
Yeah.
wasn't like he was just doing an impression. He was channeling that character.
Because
Gladly
I
pay
think,
you Tuesday.
again, Marin's like going, because, man, you and
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
it must have been crazy. He goes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
some people were enjoying themselves more than others.
well, I do. One of my favorite.
He doesn't strike you as a cocaine guy.
I think
Dooley?
it
No.
it was pretty wild, but I wasn't really.
That's the thing, though. I do.
about it.
The guys like Paul Dooley, like most of my favorite actors, are those little character guys like that who it is just like, I show up, they told me this was the part, and I just do. You don't. He's not a guy talking about.
Cute.
Yeah, I love these guys because these aren't the guys talking about, well, I've got to get into the mindset of the guy and be. No, it's just like I show up, they told me, I'm like, got it, because I just.
Yeah, and he's an improv guy too.
Yeah.
He's one of those Second City alumni, and
he's in all the the Christopher Guest movies.
I mean, you watch him in anything. That's why, I mentioned A Wedding. He's of course great in that. But, watch A Perfect Couple.
Yeah.
Which he has the lead in. And it's like this kind of sad, middle-aged love story about a guy who didn't really see himself getting together with the woman of his dreams. He's kind of resigned to his life. And then he meets this amazing one. I can't say enough great things about Paul Dooley. Also, in Waiting for Guffman, guys.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say he's a Christopher. I mean, improv guy in the Christopher Guest movies and stuff too, which is great.
Yeah, he did Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, so the remake, and he's just solid in every single thing he does.
Every single thing the man he's ever done.
And same with Richard Libertini. Never not great.
Absolutely.
Never not great.
Put the thing in the bowl. Put the thing in the bowl. Put the thing in the bowl. Put it back in the bowl. No, put it back in the bowl. Put it back in the bowl. No, put it back in the bowl. Put the back in the bowl.
I love the fact that he made an entire career because of his look.
Yeah.
He was like,
hello, I'd give you
he's a guy where you can play pretty much any ethnicity and you will do a broad caricature and yet no one will jump on you because
no cancel culture. No cancel for Richard Liberty.
No.
As a South American dictator, funny as hell.
The In-Laws, one of the funniest movies ever made. Yeah.
Jewish person.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
And in everything you see him, he's like, and in All of Me, when he's playing like some sort of vague guru,
vague Middle Eastern guru.
He kills. He kills.
Undiscernible origin.
He can't not. He's right. Any of those guys like that. I mean, and Altman loved those guys.
He could have yelled at the best and Fletch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fletch, But you've also got Donald Moffat here, and we've mentioned Paul Smith.
Donald Moffat, you owe me an apology.
You owe me an apology.
Yeah.
What's his name who plays that Casper?
Moffat is not apology. Moffat is taxes.
Oh,
so
Moffat is
he's the tax man.
He's the tax man.
Yeah.
Moffat with the eyebrows.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
He does 20 different prices, 20 different taxes.
Yes.
On the you asked me a question tax. Like,
yes.
Each one is a different amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I absolutely love in this. I mean, come on, Ray Walston.
Oh yeah.
He understood the assignment.
He
delivers.
That dude always understood the assignment. That was one of the things Walston. He could be whatever the thing needed him to be.
Of course.
That was what he was so good at. Because, of course,
he could even be the problematic pal of a problematic Dean Martin and Kiss Me Stupid.
But I was going to say, it's so interesting.
As a last-minute replacement for Peter Sellers. As a last-minute replacement.
Wow.
Yeah, that's taken a lot. But, I mean, because 2 years after this, he's doing Fast Times and gains a whole new, pop culture cachet for that.
The Martians
and years later,
he's definitely my
favorite judge on picket fences.
Yeah,
he's so Ray Walston, another one of these guys, a Texas-trained actor, like a John Hillerman,
Yep.
like Aaron Spelling, for Christ's sake.
Guys who seem British, but they're from Texas.
And yeah, and somehow managed to blow away whatever accent they had until they need it again, and become these aces. I mean, Ray Walston, I used to get confused a little bit with David Wayne because they're similar diminutive elven sort of theater guys, and could both play, the devil in Damn Yankees or something.
Sure.
But they both have these very strong pro attacks that you want them. Walston only did a couple of Altman things. It was this, and then he shows up at the end of The Player in Habeas Corpus. he's one of the guys in Habeas Corpus.
Yes.
But like we're talking about, these are the kinds of guys Altman loved. He loved the character actors, the guys who was like, great. I mean, it's why he built this great rep company, basically, because he had all these people who could be like, you're going to be this time, you're going to be this time, you could do this, we'll fit you in over there.
Another one I noticed, I don't remember the actor's name, but if you ever see Altman's Three Women, which is a terrific film and really great, the husband of one of the three women, the ex-Hollywood stuntman, is Barnacle Bill in the town drunk. And you just see him in the background with this cap, and they've got a little makeup on him to make his cheeks a little more sallow. And, it's like he threw that guy in because he couldn't get Sterling Hayden to come back and play it.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's a killer, amazing cast.
Murderer's Row.
Murderer's Row, and again, some people dump on directors who have repertory players,
and those
because
people are dumb.
You just lean on this person, and it's like, well, no, it's just smart directors are going, I can get anything I need out of this guy.
And when
do anything, why wouldn't
if
you
you
keep
know that
working
William
with
Demarest
these people?
can play 200,000 different levels of the same basic character, why wouldn't you use him in your 7 great screwball comedies over and over and over again?
Sure.
Answer, of course you would use him.
And also,
because you know that he can throw himself into a bizarre pratfall of a guy trying to kick the ass, literally, of his daughter, and then have him come in as the suspicious valet in Lady Eve. Why wouldn't you use these people over and over again?
Well, number one, you've got a shorthand. You know what you can get out of these people. You also, in some ways, though, you are more willing to challenge them because you know what they're capable. You just mentioned giving Paul Dooley the lead in a movie he just made before this, Altman.
Yeah.
Nobody else was going to give Paul Dooley the lead. But Altman knows what Dooley's capable of because he's worked with him. So I think that's another thing, too, where it's like, actually, I feel like it's sometimes people who work with people a lot know more of what they're capable of than...
Right. What Altman gets about Paul Dooley is that he's this guy of a certain age that if Altman chose to make a movie version of Death of a Salesman would be his Willie Loman.
Oh, fuck. Actually, I'm kind of upset that doesn't exist. That would have been great.
Of course. He's going to bring him in to play Wimpy or the lead or whatever, he thinks he's right for. And looking at Popeye, again, Altman, really the only director who could have pulled this off. He is looking for a group of people who can play townspeople who've known each other all their lives.
Right.
So he brings in a group of people that have known each other.
It's interesting. One of my favorite things about this is reading about Shelley Duvall, who came off of The Shining, which, as we know, was famously a god-awful experience. But she talked about just this was the most she enjoyed doing anything because it was like, the people I know were doing this. I'm back in the warm embrace of the Altman core after I went through the nightmare of working for Kubrick. And also I saw some more recent interviews with her where she talks about like, that's the favorite role that's my favorite character I've ever played is Olive Oyl, because she goes that she has an inherent strength in her, even though She's seemingly the damsel in distress. She's never not got a look on her face that is like, I don't care for any of this.
Again, it's the gods just pointed and said, you should be olive oil. I mean, you mentioned the other casting.
Well, Altman kind of had to go no, it's got to be Shelley Duvall.
It's
from what I gather,
perfect that you get a Robin Williams.
Yep.
And it's perfect that you get a Shelley Duvall, and she is the physicality. She is, and I know that they probably did, rehearse with some of the tumblers and some of the acrobats for just movement, because a lot of just unless it did just, she was like, oh right, I just have a rubber band spine, because every gesture and she sways and goes back and forth, and you're like going, that's the cartoon come to life. Right. And all the little skipping walk that Ron Williams is doing as Popeye is, granted, also probably dictated by the cartoon shoes that everyone's wearing, but I'm like, it all fits. It's all perfect. The makeup on the forearms and all that stuff, which of course was notorious. I think they had we only had 2 really nice sets of the forearms.
Well, because they shot some. They had something early and it didn't look right, and so then they took it, and then they had to make new ones
they
while filming.
A couple of times, and for distant shots, they used the backups that aren't that nice, and they're like, okay, that works. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Every single point along the way, I just sit there going,
the forearms are.
Well, about, being true to source material. This is it. I mean, I have more complaints about how Flash Gordon strays than I certainly do about this. But I don't recall it coming out within a week. But I do know that Robin and I saw it in the theaters, so we must have seen it very quickly after Flash Gordon.
Well, this is also a time where when movies, of course, this was still a time when movies weren't opening worldwide all at the same time. So it is possible, while it came out the next week, it didn't get to your local theater.
Brendan, we saw it the Palms in Sugarland.
Really? We were already in Texas by that point. Okay.
Yeah. And we also saw Annie at the Palms in Sugarland as well.
Here's my hot take. I know she's an incredibly important figure. In the history of pop culture. I have never cared about Little Orphan Annie.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there on that.
Some of the comic strip, I respect it. I've listened to one of the radio shows. Okay. I have heard the musical, seen the film, and I'm like, all right. But
I was talking to you about her lack of. We did not include Annie in our comic strip heroes thing, which mainly just because I don't want that be multiple movies, and I didn't want to talk about it. Sorry, folks.
And actually, then I was like, "What? There's only 2." And then John mentioned the one that the TV sequel,
the Victor Garber one that they did in the late '90s.
The Garber one is the true adaptation because it has all the songs and the.
It's the full. That's where they did the full Broadway musical on film.
Right. The John Huston film, they brought in the Asp and the Jeffrey Holder characters in the comic strips.
Yeah.
But I mean, John, that I'm not gonna fight you on the non-inclusion of Annie.
Yeah.
Me.
Annie is bullshit. Thank you. I said it. Thank you.
Here's the thing: is that I and we all as nerds, we can respect the impact of an IP or a character, and just personally not care for it. If you're a huge Annie fan, good on you.
But I remember
Tracy.
But,
when we get to Dick Tracy,
Annie, you're never going to hear my impression of Albert Finney singing, "I don't need anyone but you." So.
So we
the
world was cost that.
Dick Tracy's also a character that I have dipped into and enjoyed to some degree, but I respect more.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to fight you on that. I love me some Dick Tracy.
You're only basing it on that movie. It's not that I know personally you have not gone back and
this is true.
I've read all these.
I haven't read all of them. I've dabbled. I've also read some of the. I like a lot of the newer stuff that
Kyle
Oeming.
Baker did an interesting
Yeah,
take on it. Was like a
but
prequel to the movie or something.
yeah, I have those comics. Also, the like Mike Allred did a run recently. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
yeah. Michael Oeming did one as well.
Yeah, there's one that they keep advertising on Instagram. this this is a view into the matrix for what Robin gets as push advertised that I didn't ask for, but it seems like every other thing I see is an ad, and the stories on Instagram is for the new Dick Tracy comic.
mm.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with Brendan to a degree. I've read some of the comic strips, some of the comic books. My favorite thing out of all of it is the Warren Beatty movie.
Well, I do think.
Yeah, I mean,
And my
love the
least
movie,
favorite
too.
thing is the Warren Beatty specials.
Oh.
Those are bullshit.
Well, yeah, we'll save that conversation for when we, because
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Jesus, oof. But
Yes,
but
so this is an interesting journey, and I think some of these things were not going to be, really like, oh yay, perfect. I mean, just like with Prince Valiant, we're all kind of like, yeah.
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 Well, I mean, I will actually
Yeah.
say, I mean, maybe controversy. A lot of them I don't really get into, even as much as I love Flash Gordon. And look at some of the art. I'm not like reading that going, what tales have been told?
Oh,
You have a much bigger affinity for like old timey writing
Well,
than I do. I think it can often be the
it's
case.
true. I love
I think
vintage
Brendan
pop
leans
culture.
more towards plotting than writing.
That could
Or
be.
sometimes in the case of, I mean, Flash Gordon, the comic strip is very repetitive, especially when you read it in a block. Comic strips are perfect if you're reading them week to week.
Yes, I do think
Yeah.
that obviously is very
A lot
much the
of
case.
us are sitting here that are archiving or want to
Yeah.
dive into the past. I have all these collections, and if you read,
Yeah.
like an entire volume of Flash Gordon, you go, it is the same thing over and over and over again. However, in the case of like Flash Gordon, it's Alex Raymond's art more than anything that just
Totally.
blows me away.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
look at Prince Valiant and look at it and go, wow.
Yeah.
And then read it and drift off into
You
a very
You
deep,
get past the cap.
peaceful sleep.
Yeah. Brandon, have you considered?
Just
I
get in the
know
way.
you
It's like
suffer
reading
from.
Robert Charles Crumb's comic strips as they devolve into
yeah,
a
into just-
tiny,
yeah.
tiny
With
illustration
a
in the
lot of
corner
text.
with a lot.
The joke I was going to make there was, yes, Brandon, I know you suffer from insomnia. Have you considered just buying a bunch of Prince Valiant volumes and they'll put you right? I think doctors are prescribing that now.
Well, see, it's like, here's CBD gummies,
Yeah.
and here's some classic Prince
Yeah,
Valiant.
we're giving
say-
you 50 pages of PV.
One thing that we didn't do, and I believe there was a feature film, but there was also serial, and I know you're avoiding serials, but we didn't do Terry and the Pirates.
No,
that was the big
I don't
surprise
think
for
that-
me. Is
yeah.
when I started reading Terry and the Pirates, and I started at the beginning.
I don't think there is a
I'd heard about it for
movie.
so long, and then I realized how good it is. The comic strip.
That one does
So it makes me
is
curious about the film. Like, is it any good? And I'm sure it's not. But
No,
Yeah.
how
I don't think
Terry and
there's-
the Pirates has kind of a yellow peril thing going on there, Brennan.
well, ish. The
Brennan?
thing is that
Yeah, they lean into it a little more in the movie adaptation.
I don't.
Oh,
there's.
I'm sure.
I don't see. There's not a. There's not a. There's just. It's just a serial from what I'm seeing.
it's a serial.
Yeah, that's
okay.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
I've seen a little bit of them on YouTube, and it's just
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's. I'm sure it's.
Yeah. Anything else about Popeye? We've talked about this. This is sort of.
I'll bring up Jules Pfeiffer because we've been kind of shitting on him a little bit.
Yeah, nothing
I
is
don't
Jules
want
Pfeiffer in
anyone to
general.
go away with
Yeah.
the idea that I don't like Jules Pfeiffer. I think without Jules Pfeiffer's screenplay, you would not have the structure.
My
And
favorite. Yeah.
Jules Pfeiffer in general, I'm a fan of. I love Little Murders.
Little
I
Murders
love
is great.
Carnal Knowledge.
Yep.
And I like
And,
you know
he's
he is
one of
a
the-
fan of comic strips and
Yes, he's one of the main guys who, and also Steranko, who did a history of comics.
Steranko,
Jules
yeah,
Pfeiffer
yeah,
is
very
one
much.
of the guys who was trying to legitimize American comics, not just comic strips, but even superhero comics. He's like going, guys, realize this is an art form. And that was a hot take in the 60s when people are trying to go, dude, respect this stuff. Yeah. And he was one of the main proponents. So Jules Pfeiffer's a hero to me. And actually his own comics I appreciate, but they're not my jam, man. At the same time,
I do like his comics because if you enjoy carnal knowledge, basically his comics are a lot like that.
It's a very neurotic
satire of
East
people.
Coasty. It's
You could argue that George Firth's book for Company is very much a Jules Pfeiffer-ish look at adults at that time.
We have done a lot of talking about musical theater in this episode.
Well, I mean, it kind of, like you're saying, it's surprising, because this is even though this is not based on a play, it does have the energy. Yeah, I mean, this crowd also is a musical theater crowd.
John, Mr. Fosse said I was the finest dancer of my generation. And that,
Mr.
right
Fosse.
Before the heart attack he had that killed him. So, you tell me. All right.
But, because, I mean, this does have a lot of, even though this is not a Broadway musical, it does have a lot of that. And when you were saying that wrong, I'm surprised nobody's
I'm
all the shit they have done.
Musical out of Xanadu, but you can't give Popeye.
I was just gonna say,
same year.
They've done.
Any consideration?
There's a fucking Great Gatsby musical on Broadway right now. Like, I mean, why not? Yeah, well, The Outsiders is gonna be a musical on Broadway as well.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's just great. Right. In today's world where they're adapting anything, nobody has enough affinity for this to go.
City Stories comes to Broadway. John, start practicing your vocals.
I'm working on a soft shoe routine for it. Does Bobek get a big tap number?
It's a big number.
Yeah,
and it's going to be awesome.
But that's the thing. I mean, it's so interesting that last season we did Stephen King on IP Squad. There's a fucking Carrie musical, and it's awful.
Right.
It's famously awful.
It's one of the most famous disasters in Broadway history.
Yeah.
There's a Stephen King musical that he wrote the book for that John Mellencamp wrote. John Mellencamp, sorry.
Yeah, he's no longer Cougar, baby. No way.
Yeah, please. I'm showing my age.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
come on.
I don't get. I mean, when you think about all the musical
comedy
aces that are on Broadway. Brian Darcy James is Popeye. Jefferson Mays is Popeye. I can't believe that you can't come up with something.
Yeah.
If you could do Shrek the stage musical, why you can't do the Addams Family the stage musical, and you can't
Which
do
was
a
delightful.
Popeye? The songs are there.
Okay, right.
But here's the thing, you guys, that is on this as of the recording.
My phone calls, bro.
As of the recording of this. They have announced an intention to make a new live-action Popeye movie. That's apparently being eyed by somebody here. Let me get the news on this. Breaking news that live-action Popeye movie in the works.
Who's gonna direct that shit?
Yeah, I don't know if they. Let's see, who's doing this? Because somebody was talking about doing a CG movie, but now they're saying live-action.
No, the CG was better. They did some test footage. I saw it. It's really good. They should have gone for that.
In development from Sopranos writer. Okay. Michael Kaleo. Apparently, at least at the moment, they are seeking Dwayne Johnson for the part of Popeye. Is who they're.
Now,
that's who they.
I'm out.
Which is just.
I'm going to say no to that.
It's not even.
That is no.
It's not even that he's wrong for it. It's just the laziest thought in the world.
I'm out.
Yeah, because he's already got some muscles that he would then have to have enhanced with makeup or CGI.
Well, they're by the way, this is one of those Hollywood things. They're looking for a Dwayne Johnson type. I don't know what that means.
No.
Who is that? Oh, you know what? It's gonna be.
It's not cut.
Yeah.
Popeye is this weirdly shaped guy,
Right.
on purpose.
But also, like, are you going to try to turn this into,
the
like,
thing with the forearms? It's just
this is gonna, there's no, because I'm like, are you going to try to treat this as, like, proper action? Because that's also not a great, like, you're not going to.
Okay, well, here's the argument. If they are going to do something that is based on, but they're doing, like, an ironic, we are changing it up. And this ain't your daddy's Popeye,
Yeah.
and they're doing that on purpose, where it is this sort of like brutal action adventure thing. That would be a take, and probably no one would want it, and it would be like, oh wow, no thank you. But I would respect that. At the same time, I think maybe trying to just embrace animation the way it is today, find the right voice actors who then you don't have to worry about whether they look the part.
I mean,
or not.
there's a couple things working against it. Number one, as we talked about, like, Popeye was ancient when I was a kid, so you don't already. Today's kids definitely aren't, like, primed for Popeye. That's a big problem to begin with.
No
Because
one's
I even
listening
think
to this podcast.
because
I bunch of retirees. That's who's listening.
this is
to
current.
This
Well,
one
our
right
show is always being played constantly in a loop in retirement homes. That's yeah, and they're like, I remember
You told me about
Popeye.
that deal.
But
I couldn't believe it, but now
the other way
I am a
to do it that I always want more use of, but I understand because nobody went to this, because once again it's old timey, and we'll talk about it down the line, is that Adventures of Tintin movie. The cast actors and do it mocap. That's where the mocap. That's where I never understood the Zemeckis obsession with doing realistic mocap. It's like, no, this is now an excuse to cast actors in parts where physically they couldn't exist. Why wouldn't you use an actor to bring to life a cartoon universe?
That Tintin movie.
It's so good.
Breathtaking,
amazing,
and the tall teen and I saw it in 3D.
Yeah,
and
one of the
what
few
a great use of 3D.
One of the few good. Well, leave it to Spielberg, right? That guy's pretty good.
No one cared. That's the thing that kills me. No one cared.
Again, Brendan,
loved it.
We failed it as a movie going.
Well, we will give that the time. That will be much later in the season. Like I said, that will be much later in the season. We will be doing the Adventures of Tintin, and I do love that movie.
Okay,
but
Popeye great, and if you don't watch it, you're a baby.
But let's wrap up Popeye with our highs and lows segment, where we look at what some high and low viewpoints on this movie are.
By the way, we didn't do that last time.
Well, yeah, I forget sometimes if the conversation goes too long.
No,
I don't think we did. We didn't do Flash Gordon. Yeah, I did. I've been bad about it. Here you go.
We're losing viewers.
Yeah,
we're losing viewers.
Here, this comes to us from IMDb user Joe Shannon Gabe. And the review is titled "Masterpiece." You heard me right, masterpiece. I see that lots of people hate this movie. I guess I can see why. It's so idiosyncratic, so loose, so out there, so ... Altman. But this is truly one of the sweetest.
I like this guy.
But yeah, I know. Yeah, this does read like one of us wrote this. But this is truly one of the sweetest, gentlest, and most tender movies I have ever seen. This movie can be enjoyed if for no other reason than for its total lack of irony. Like Popeye, it is what it is, and I believe it to be a masterpiece.
Perfect.
This was Robin Williams' first movie role, and he is a brilliant. Yeah, we didn't talk about that, by the way. Yeah, this was his first film role. He was coming from TV. And you talk about, I can't even imagine Hoffman doing this. That seems insane. Anyway, he brings so much humanity and pathos to this character that is easy to see the great movies in his future. Shelley Duvall was born to play Olive Oyl, and she does not squander the role of a lifetime. And in a smaller role, a stand-up performance is turned in by Bill Irwin as Ham, Olive's bumbling, stumbling clown of an ex-boyfriend. Yeah, we briefly touched on that. Bill Irwin is just the greatest.
Yeah.
I mean, just the absolute greatest. Not only amazing clown, but a truly, not that you see it a ton in this movie, but he's but a really good actor, too. Very good actor. Yeah.
I've said this about Paul Dooley, but you watch Bill Irwin in this, Rachel Getting Married, and the Legion TV show.
He's so good in Legion.
Yeah.
that this guy is not a national treasure.
I know. It's
He
one of those
is,
things where it's like, I
because
mean,
he
we
is-
we already know he is the great modern clown, but on top of that, just a fucking amazing actor. All right.
And with Robin Williams, talking about Robin Williams, this guy was trained as a mime,
Yep.
Yeah.
and the all the little steps that he does, all the choreography, the fight choreography that he
Yep.
nails.
Yeah.
It's just it's like a ballet. This movie is like a ballet. You could watch it with the sound off.
No,
off
it's
of
just
it,
and like it's
you could.
I do agree with the guy's thing about the lack of irony is what I do like about the movie, is that if there was
Yeah.
any sense of winking, this would have been intolerable
No
to sit through.
cynicism.
Yeah.
No
This
cynicism.
is sincere from start.
There
to
is
finish.
more to this review that I do want, because I think we'll further agree with this guy. The real star of the show, however, is the atmosphere that Altman conjures up, bringing the 2D comic strip vividly to life and setting you down in this magical little island town of Sweet Haven. Harry Nilsson's score is pitch perfect, and his songs help to sketch out the characters' motives and emotions. One more thing about this movie. I can watch it with my 3-year-old son, and we sing the songs, and both enjoy it immensely. There are so few movies that can do that. Like I said, a masterpiece! Exclamation point.
There you go.
10 out of 10 stars. But some people apparently are not
Now it's time
fans.
for a second opinion.
Kind
The
of.
theme.
You mean?
Yeah.
Wait, but John, you're not saying that there are good people on both sides, are you?
No, I'm saying that this person I'm about to read is a bad person.
It's a bad
Well, because I
person
said
reviewing
whatever
this
like
next review.
minor quibbles I have with it, going like 1 star total trash is an insane, truly insane opinion, because that is just not that. By the way, everybody thinks they're very clever in the 1-star section. A lot of like blow this one down. Yeah, right.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Finish
Fuck
Yeah.
all of
this
you.
movie.
Fuck all of you.
Yeah. Okay. But I think this is and this does have one of those clever titles. This comes to us from IMDb user Strong122. Probably eating his spinach.
Mark Strong?
Yeah,
Is that
Mark,
Mark Strong?
it's character actor Mark Strong. But the review is titled.
Review of Popeye.
But I think Brendan, I think you'll be fascinated by this review, because this is
Probably
a
fascinating.
capital N nerd. I love when people take stances like this. All right, the title of the review is "That's All I Can Stands. I Can't Stands No More." This 1980 live-action feature film called Popeye is absolute trash, and did spell that out. Absolutely. Oh
my God.
More exclamation points, and the last one's all in caps. I guarantee you there's not a single, solitary, funny, or even slightly amusing moment in this movie's entirety. There isn't. Popeye has got to be one of the ultimate fiasco movies of all time. It wouldn't, and it couldn't, even amuse a 5-year-old child. For all the extensive time, effort, and cost that was obviously put into the design and building of the elaborate, goofy Looney Tune sets for Popeye, and not to mention Robin Williams' special Popeye makeup effects, I even thought there'd at least be some worthwhile and humorous entertainment value to this flick. But nope, there wasn't. Popeye was pure garbage. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah. But here's where I think this is very interesting. The Popeye cartoon character is without a doubt one of my all-time favorite animated heroes. He is such a dynamic and complex sailor dude. Popeye ranks right up there with Superman in my books. And yet in this flick, Robin Williams almost single-handedly succeeded in destroying Popeye's wonderful charm and winning character with his cringe-worthy portrayal. Williams was absolutely pathetic as Popeye. He literally rendered Popeye contemptible. I loathe the way he tried to emulate Popeye's gestures and imitate Popeye's unique speech pattern and distinctive chuckle. Blah! Literally says BLAH exclamation point. Blah! All anybody in their right mind has to do is simply watch any one of Popeye's amazing animated shorts from the 30s or 40s. It doesn't take a genius to immediately realize there's no comparison here between one of those classic cartoon episodes and this crummy little excuse of a movie. A simple, short, 7-minute Popeye cartoon from 1938 surpasses this entire flick by literal miles when it comes to likable characters, genuine humor, and real, honest-to-goodness imagination. 1 out of 10 stars.
Remind me to kill that guy if I'm ever introduced to him.
I'm just saying, look.
The idea, that's the thing that got me.
The name or address of that person, because I feel like I need to have words.
Well, because
and here's my feeling is that if I ever ran into this guy, it would probably be 3 a.m. at like House of Pies in Houston.
Yes.
Where I would ask the waiter to have him removed.
Yeah.
He's obviously a lunatic.
And then the waiter would look at you and go, "It's House of Pies."
Well, I will say, okay,
I know,
as I sometimes do, I clicked on the profile here to look at some of the other reviews, and I will say there are many things we might disagree with this gentleman about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
mainly his
All right.
massive hatred of Jerry Lewis, and we'll move on from there.
Oh.
Yeah, that also makes me think, why did you watch so many Jerry Lewis movies if you seem to absolutely hate every one and then felt the need to write a review for all of them? It's like, I get it.
Wow.
You don't like him. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, if you didn't like The Nutty Professor, guess what? Cinderfella, not much more enjoyable to you.
This guy, all I say is he probably threw the inventor of the comments section a parade when it was invented.
Yeah.
Because he got tired of the effort of writing letters to the editor.
Yeah.
Hear me, World.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by people. Anyway.
It's too much.
Next.
It's just too much.
We talked about how Popeye is in some ways kind of remembered as a disaster, even though, as we talked about, it was actually successful. So I say next week, though we're just going chronologically, but even still, let's look at an actual, undisputed disaster. And that is a film of a character I know it's all near and dear to us. We're going to learn the legend of the Lone Ranger.
The man with the man.
Oh my God, Brendan! Do you remember going to see this in the movie?
The legend
Yes, I do.
of the Lone Ranger. Yeah, a character I love.
Figures.
You had the action figures? Oh boy.
No, here's the thing.
Yeah.
To me, this movie. Well, we'll talk about it. I haven't watched it in a million years, but it's a misfire as far as I remember.
Yeah.
But it does a job of telling the story, and at least the action figures were not dependent on the movie. I could just, because I love the character. It was like, Lone Ranger and Tonto action figures.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to justify why you have the action figures. Looking at your shelves, I understand you must own all action figures that have ever been made.
No, that would be Mr. John Campbell.
Really?
Yeah.
That has ever been formed.
The thing, but I know some toy collector friends who put me to shame. So there are levels to this. But as always, I will read the tagline.
I'm very excited to examine this long, buried treasure in Americans.
As always, I will leave our fans and listeners here with just a taste of the movie with the tagline, which is really long for this one for some reason. Yeah. Although his reputation was legendary, his identity remained a secret. For he rode to fame on a white stallion with his trusted Indian friend, their words, not mine, and a black mask hidden across his face. Now the truth is told, and the mask is lifted.
Wow.
The legend of the Lone Ranger.
He didn't do such a great job of hiding his identity. It's John Reed.
No, it's
no, you shouldn't. Brendan, don't.
Yeah.
People don't know that.
What do you mean, Brendan? It's clearly future.
I'm actually looking forward to this because it has been years, and I know it's not good at all.
Yeah, but I don't know what you're talking about because he's played by future megastar.
If somebody could ever make a movie where at one point he looks at Tonto knowingly and goes, "I think this town needs a visit from the old prospector."
Yes.
Then it would be a good Lone Ranger movie.
Well, what's great too is not only can we talk about this movie, but in next week's episode, we can, by talking about this movie, talk about the entirety of the career of Clinton Spilsbury. That's what's great.
Good. So we're gonna have
a real one and done leading man.
This is the 5-minute episode. Then.
Yeah, that's it.
This is an instance of someone who was dubbed over not because of a contract dispute a la Sam
Yeah.
Jones. This person's dubbed over just because they're like, holy shit, we made a mistake.
What are we doing?
This
Yeah.
will be fun.
Yeah, so next week, Legend of the Lone Ranger. Of course, you want more from this show and all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network. You want to head over to our Patreon page, which is patron.podbean.com/punchup. There you can get cool exclusive bonus shows, including the three of us talking about the films of Vincent Price over there. You don't want to miss that. That is...
If you thought we went overboard on Paul Dooley.
Man, we're getting ready though. The Paul Dooley cast would be a lot because that guy's been in so much shit.
That we're gonna do Doolin' Doolies.
Doolins.
It's gonna be a great show.
What is it?
It's going to be called,
as always, by Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
It's going to be called Dooley Unspooly, and
there you go. Yeah, but that's going to do it for this week's episode. Until next week, the case file is closed.